Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by energy and environment reporter Breanne Deppisch. Breanne, the Biden administration has found a culprit besides Vladimir Putin for why we're seeing such rising energy prices. Talk a little bit about how they've been discussing this issue and who they think is to blame.
Absolutely. So as the midterms approach in November, Democrats have set their eyes on a new scapegoat for the rise in gas prices, and that appears to be oil and gas companies. Mm-hmm. They have levied blame on them in recent days for the tax hikes because they're actually citing volatility in the oil market, which prices soared at the beginning of this month following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and then dropped down this week. So essentially, Biden, some other White House officials, and Democrats in the Senate and in the House have accused the markets of potentially inflating prices on purpose or keeping prices high as to pad their own pockets and keep gas prices high for consumers.
I mean, so their objection is that as the crude prices have gone down, we haven't seen a corresponding decrease yet in gas prices at the pump.
Yes, they're really frustrated about the disparity in the lower oil prices and the still high gas prices. But that's not exactly a shift industry officials told me this morning that we can expect to see overnight.
And they've definitely been talking about price gouging and profiteering and things like that.
Absolutely, and we've actually seen legislative movement on this front. Earlier this week, House Commerce Chairman Frank Pallone wrote to the six of the largest oil companies. He addressed CEOs of Chevron, Exxon, BP, all those major players, essentially asking them about their business practices since Russia invaded Ukraine and asking whether they were, or essentially accusing them, I guess I shouldn't say asking, accusing them of keeping prices artificially high, even as oil prices fell.
And so at the state level, you're seeing some efforts to provide relief to customers at the pump through the gas tax.
Currently, efforts are underway in at least 20 states to initiate what they call a gas tax holiday. This would affect state taxes, not the federal tax we're seeing on gas, but it would provide consumers relief at the pump. We're seeing those proposals in 20 states, 20 plus, I should say. And the length of the holidays ranges from 1 month to upwards of 2 years.
Has there been any discussion of doing that at the federal level, or is the major investments in infrastructure, does that make it sort of untenable?
I believe there have been calls from some to pass a federal gas tax, whether or not gas tax holiday. Thank you. Whether or not that could be feasible remains to be seen. But yeah, there seems to be much less momentum there than at the state level.
And some people think that the federal gas tax is already too low.
Absolutely, there's a lot of disagreement there between various parties, but. Yeah, and I think states are also able to draw on different revenue, such as surplus from some of the COVID funds that they received last year, and other similar efforts that may have given them a surplus, yes.
So there was a development with Ukraine in terms of its energy, its ability to get energy as being invaded by Russia. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so actually in an exciting development, Ukraine has actually connected its electric grid to Moldova and another country in the EU, which is a really significant development if anyone follows Ukraine and Russia as much as I do. Russia has continuously, for years, inserted itself into Ukraine's power grid. They have shut off their electricity dating back to 2013. This is something that they would do for days just as a means of intimidation, basically letting them know they're there. And obviously that fear has really grown legs and become a full-fledged threat as the war carries on. So they did connect their electricity grid to Europe yesterday, totally cutting it off from Russia's energy grid. And there's also potential for It's for Ukraine's fleet of nuclear reactors. They have 15. It's the second largest in Europe. To potentially transfer that power as well to Europe, you know, in the event of, depending on what happens, I guess, on the ground there. Right. And that could also be great for Europe, allowing it to boost domestic energy production as well.
And obviously a lot of energy implications for the whole continent as this war continues.
Yes, definitely. I will say, I think the electricity grid and, you know, the potential ability to shift nuclear power to Europe are two really positive developments, despite you know, the past 3 weeks of really terrible
in
news.
A situation where there aren't very many positive developments.
Exactly.
Right.
That's one thing that we can get excited about.
Thank you, Breanne.
Thank you.
You can read Breanne and subscribe to our Daily on Energy newsletter at WashingtonExaminer.com.